Welcome back to 15.2 Angles in the Inscribed Quadrilaterals. We'll turn to page 12 in your packet. Alright, so take a moment right now because this is not drawn for you in your packet. A circle with a four-sided shape inside that circle. Notice I have two angles that are across from each other. Angle A and angle C. And they're highlighted. If at some point I'm going too fast, please pause right now. Like if you're still drawing, now would be a good time to pause. Because in about 3, 2, 1, I'm going to continue. So notice angle A and angle C are right across from each other. So we're going to add angle A and angle C and have that equal to 180. This is one of the theorems that we're going to be reviewing today. Also, notice these two angles are right across from each other. They also add up, angle B and D add up to 180 as well. All right, let's continue. So here we have these two, and they want us to find for the unknown variables. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to highlight X and 80 because they're across from each other. I do know that I wouldn't need to kind of set up an equation to solve this out. Some of you already know what X is. But let's say if I didn't know what that is. 80 plus X equals 180. I know this is not algebra class, but let's solve this out. What's the opposite of positive 80? Negative 80. So that cancels out. And what is 180? Take away 80. That's 100. All right, so we're going to do the same thing with y and 71. Let's set up our equation. All right, what's the opposite of a positive 71? A negative 71. So this will cancel out. And I'm left with y equals. Calculate that out, pause, and do so now. Unpause, you should have gotten 109. All right, let's continue to do the same thing for the second circle. Go ahead and set up your equation and solve that out. Pause and do so now. Unpause, that would be subtracting 80 from both sides. Y equals 92. All right, we'll solve that one out. X plus 108. What's the opposite of a positive 108? Negative. So let's subtract 108 from both sides. And X equals, what would that be? 72. All right, if at any moment I'm going too fast, please go ahead and pause. And you can kind of see if you can do some of the problems, or pause before I show you how to do the problem and check your work. Number 4 says a quadrilateral PQRS is inscribed in a circle. So I want to see a picture. So there's my circle, and there is a four-sided shape inside that circle, and it's labeled PQRS. Go ahead and do so now. Like in your packet, label it, draw it out, and unpause. I'm sure you did that. So they tell me that angle P is 57 degrees. Notice how I'm labeling angle P is 57, and I'm labeling angle R. Hey, they're right across from each other. That means they add up to 180, right? That means I could figure out what angle R is. But, is it possible to find the measure of some? Yeah, I could find angle R. But can I find all the angles? Which, by the way, includes Q and S. But they don't tell me anything about Q. They don't tell me anything about S. Like, nothing. By the way, those are question marks. They don't tell me. Let me make those question marks a little bit more questionable, if that works. But I don't know. And they have to tell me one of them so I can find the other one, right? So unfortunately, I could find one of the angles, angle R, but I may be unable to find angle Q and S. Oh, sad. No, you do not have to write the sad face. I just thought, oh, we can only find some of the angles. All right, moving on. So I know this is not algebra class, but we're going to set up an equation. We're going to have, notice how W and U are right across from each other. So we're going to add those together. All right. And have that equal to 180. We're going to solve for Z, because once we find Z, we can actually figure out each one of these angles that you see here. All right, so let's take some time. What's 37 take away 27? And that would be 10. What's 5Z plus 12Z? 17Z equals 180. What's the opposite of adding 10? Subtracting 10. That'll cancel out. I'm left with 17z. What's 180 take away 10? It's 170. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing by 17. So that cancels out to be 1. So z equals, what's 170 divided by 17? 10. So that's not my answer. I have to actually plug in 10 in. So take a moment right now. Go ahead and copy this down and calculate out what 37 plus 5 times 10 is. And that would be 87. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for angle T. Let's plug in 10 in there. Go ahead and take a moment. Calculate what's 125. Take away 10. 115. And last but not least, 12 times 10 minus 27. What would that be? 93 degrees. And then last but not least, angle V, which we don't know. But I know that 15 plus this will get me 180. So 180 take away 115 would be what? And we have found every single one of these angles, which is what they asked us to do for this problem. And we're at checkpoint. That was the fastest ever. So notice that checkpoint problem is very much like the explain to problem for number 5 that we just did. So again, we're going to set up our equation where 5x plus 20 plus 7x minus 8 equals 180. Take a moment right now and add what's 5x plus 7x. 12x, what's 20, take away 8? Also 12. Bring down the equals 180. Let's go ahead and what is the opposite of adding 12? Subtracting 12. So that's going to cancel out and I'm left with 12x equals, what's 180 take away 12? 168. What's the opposite of multiplying by 12? Dividing by 12. So 12 divided by 12 is just 1. I'm left with x equals, what's 168 divided by 12? 14. So now that I know this, I can now plug in for r and work that out. Unpause, that should be 90. Go ahead and plug in for x. We'll work that out. And that would be 90 as well. And last one, 10 times 14 would be 140. And then angle S, which is the last angle actually, what's 180? Take away 140. 40. So notice here, all of our answers are just listed here. All right. If you need help doing any of the homework, which you do have to do out of the textbook, with number 2, so there's some support there to kind of help you kind of figure out what it is that you're asked to do. For number 3, so again, some support on what you're asked to do. For number 5 or 6. And if this is not enough support, please feel free to come into the center and ask for support. And then number 11, which that's my support for you to kind of help you out with that. Once you find that all out, again, go ahead and solve, set up an equation and solve this out. So if you do need a support kind of having you walk through and kind of working out each one of these problems, please come to the center and get the support you need with the homework. All right, we'll see you here back on the next video.